Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Tuesday. It is September the 30th. It is one of my favorite days. It's government shutdown eve. Oh, yes. You know, some people have a panic clock. Have you ever seen these things where their clock is set several minutes in advance and it goes forward? So it's like always like 8 minutes off, and it's in. So they always think they're going to be late, and then they make it on time. My buddies used to call it a panic clock when I was growing up. I don't know what they're actually called, but you know, this sort of instinct. I actually realized that my clock is off by 2 minutes here, so I got to set that correct. What if we had a panic calendar for the people that are in our government? They have basically one really important job to do. They're supposed to pass laws, but mostly what they're supposed to do is decide how to spend our money. Isn't that the thing they're supposed to do? They're supposed to decide how much money to spend on every single government entity. And that's it for the year. And what do they do instead? They do these theatrical hearings, and they go out there and they bring evidence and they investigate all this BS nonsense. But they don't actually do the one thing that they're actually supposed to do. They don't actually rule. You know, you hear when you're growing up in government classes how the most powerful thing about Congress is they have the power of the purse. And you'd think that you'd want to wield that properly. Wouldn't you think that you'd want to give it a certain amount of time and energy, that you'd actually spend some serious effort on that one thing that you get to do? You have the power of appropriation. You can spend our money. And so what do? Like absolute children, they wait until the last possible minute, and then they act like there was no other way to do it. And then they spend all of our money at once. They're like, blah, and they just throw it all out there. Trillions and trillions of dollars. I had a buddy who I recently talked to, FBI buddy. We used to go out in Washington, D.C. and go for lunch. And the joke is that he didn't know how to handle going to one of these buffets where they charge you by the pound. Have you ever seen these things? You go out there and you can load up salad or chicken or watermelon, whatever it is. So you go out there and you load up your little plate, and then you go and you weigh it, and they don't ever tear the weight of the actual carton. So you're paying for the carton by weight too. That used to piss me off. But he would always come back with like this monstrous pile of food because he just couldn't figure it out. And I would go, what are you doing, man? Like, how much was that? And he'd be like, it was like $23. We all had, $8, $10 little salad things. And we go, why? And he goes, I don't know. I just panicked. I just couldn't make a decision. I just grabbed everything. I just freaked out. I feel like that's what Congress does, except it's intentional at this point. What if the only calendar month that ever showed in every single member of Congress office was September? Because illogically, that's when the fiscal year goes for the government. It starts on October 1st, tomorrow, and it ends today. So what if you just acted like it was always September so you could do your flipping jobs? I don't hate that we're going to get a government shutdown. And by the way, I'm apparently one of the lone voices in this. The people on the left, the people on the right, everybody is crying. CNN says shut down LOOMS. There's so much doom about a government shutdown. So let's actually just talk about what a government shutdown involves for those of you that haven't been part of this program for a long time. It doesn't actually involve anything. Everything just keeps going on. I'm just going to give you the heads up. That's the bottom line up front. We're going to have a lot of fun with today's show. I'm going to give you some inside baseball on the FBI Agents Association and their links to Marxist ideology and phrasings. You're going to be shocked to find out that the same people that didn't defend anyone over COVID vaccine mandates, that didn't give a rat's about Christians being removed from federal service because of their religious beliefs, they are suddenly crying about people that took a knee for the BLM protest, solidarity movement, whatever. And just remember that word solidarity, because we're going to come back to it. We're going to talk about Portland and the shutdown and so on and so forth. Before we get into all that stuff, let's start off with my friends over at Patriot Protect. There is a problem in this world, and the problem is there's tons of data, and a lot of it can be used to compromise your financial security. Patriot-protect.com/KYLE. That is the website, patriot-protect.com/Kyle. Today, it is scary easy for criminals, scammers, anyone looking to do you harm to have access to your personal information online. They can find your home address. They can find your phone number. They can find your workplace. They can find your family members' names. Just a few clicks away. I have used this, by the way, if you are halfway decent at your what they used to call Google foo, right? The search engine capabilities. You can find everybody. I found active FBI agents. I found their apartments. I found out what the floor plan looks like. It's not hard to do. If you guys want to start putting some of that stuff behind a couple of different closed doors, you can do that with my friends over at Patriot Protect. There's always going to be potentials of data breaches that are exposing sensitive information. That it's the people search websites, the data brokers that are out there putting it out there for clicks. They're getting it out there for some advertising. Sometimes it's behind a paywall, but oftentimes it's not. They can harvest your data, all the stuff that we just talked about, publish it online and make it very searchable for other people to find you and scam you. They can pretend to be you, or they can pretend to know enough about you to get your other information. Patriot Protect is always scrubbing the internet 24/7, getting rid of it from Google and the other data broker websites. They're also scrubbing the dark web to find out if something's been compromised and sold, so you guys can know and take steps to protect yourself in advance. It's a few dollars a month. It's really not expensive. You do it one time and you file and forget. I find that I have a couple of different things that I don't mind putting like a single amount of dollars on and then just moving on with my life. Some of them are the licenses that I have to use every day for business, and some of them are just keeping track of my personal information because I don't want people showing up at my door for their sake. It'd be bad for them. You guys can know what I'm talking about. We talked about tomahawk axes yesterday. All right, we're going to get into today's program, but consider all of our sponsors. The links are in the show descriptions. Let's get started with some Marxists who work for the government. Oh, but I repeat myself. Let's go right now. I had to start with a little bit more coffee. Guys, you know what? I feel a little extra refreshed, even though I shouldn't. My baby, my 2-year-old, came down the stairs this morning at, I don't know, 5:20 something. And she's like, hello. Just like a tiny little 2-year-old, little blonde girl talking from the stairwell. My wife and I are immediately like springing into action. But we made an interesting decision. Usually we're up way too late, way after 10 o'clock, like 11 o'clock or later. Last night, I decided, let's take the kids pee early and let's get to bed by 10. My wife's answer was, that sounds awfully luxurious. That's the fun thing about being a parent. If you catch an extra half hour of sleep, your life is better. It's really funny. Okay, so we're going to get into this story. I'm laughing now because I'm going to be crying shortly. This is the FBI Agents Association's Member Connect. Why is that relevant? Oh, because on Friday, Kash Patel, in a momentary good moment, although way too slow and way too delayed, removed a bunch of people that probably shouldn't have had their jobs when it happened. There were more than a dozen FBI agents that dropped for a knee in a non-threatening environment, putting themselves at tactical risk, putting everybody else at risk. And they were eventually able to experience the sort of fun removal from federal service that my friends and I got. Now, my buddies and I got it because we had principles that we were standing up for something that was supposed to happen. There was supposed to be at least a potential of evaluating accommodation requests for religion. Imagine if you were a Muslim person and you happened to work for the FBI and you had some sort of religious issue with the way that the FBI was asking you to do business. You think they wouldn't evaluate it and fall all over themselves? I can assure you they would. But if you're a Christian person who says, hey, I'm a pro-life guy and I just don't want some vaccine shots that are developed using fetal cell lines, and by the way, we think there's a possibility of this interrupting the reproductive system, and reproduction is a really big deal to us. We want to have all the kids. We want to be fruitful and multiply. Wouldn't you expect that the Agents Association that represents you would step up and go to work? It turns out they did not. It turns out that we never heard from these people. They didn't want to file any lawsuits. They didn't want to back us up. They actually sent out official guidance was to tell us to go F off and to just get the shots. And then you find out that if you take a knee for Black Lives Matter and take an overtly political act on duty while wearing your placards that say who you work for, they will go to the mat for you. I'm going to read you the member connect email that was punched out, and I've got something on the screen, but it's not the entire email, so I'll read it to you right now. This is from the folks that pay in every month for it's like a legal advocacy group that does joint. I don't know. It's crowdsourcing potential legal problems that they pay for. By the way, they've hired things like Mark Zaid and some other left-wing lawyers to go and represent FBI agents who have lost their job under Patel. It says, dear members, we want to update you on a deeply concerning development impacting our colleagues on Friday, FBI Director Kash Patel illegally fired. That's a real specific word. Illegally fired at least 15 agents. This came on the heels of last month's firing of another 5 agents. And as you know, agents have enough to worry about in their day-to-day work, wondering whether they'll receive due process if or their work ever comes under question. Shouldn't be one of those worries. I read that verbatim. That's the way it was written. Nobody proofreads it. Classic government work. We at the FBI AA are working to address this issue as required by bureau policy, federal law, and the United States Constitution. Suddenly they remember that. FBI agents who face allegations of misconduct are entitled to due process. Broadly speaking, that means a full and fair investigation with the opportunity to respond and defend oneself where appropriate before any final decision is made. Let me just tell you that I also experienced a removal from my job, and there was, in fact, no due process. And we did not actually get to face any of our accusers or respond or defend ourselves. And they were totally okay with it. No big deal. Now, it goes on to cry about these agents being dismissed. As I understand it, it was actually done through what's called the Office of Professional Responsibility. There was an internal investigation that was carried out, and they did actually do the thing they're supposed to do. So, allow us to just dispense with that nonsense. But that's not the bigger problem here. The bigger problem is some of you have wondered, why is it that the suspendables who were coaching and giving information to the current FBI director, who were helping the understanding of guys like Dan Bongino, who are now the deputy director, why is it that those guys immediately threw Kyle Seraphin and Garrett O'Boyle and Steve Friend, voices that went out very loudly and protested against FBI abuses when it wasn't very safe or cool to do it? Why are those guys not part of the brain trust that helps this agency correct course? Do you want to know what's really going on inside? Because this is actually worth knowing. The FBI Agents Association, the Society for Ex-FBI Agents, 2 different groups, they immediately got the ear of the current FBI director. They rolled in and they said, we're going to offer you the same thing that they must offer every FBI director. We're going to give you sort of like the backing of the rank and file. We're going to give you the official imprimatur of the FBI Agents Association. We want to work with you because our only existence is if we can suck up enough to the director, then we can have access. Access is the name of the game. It doesn't matter if you're on the left or the right. As long as you have access, then you're in the game. The problem is, if you say anything that upsets the people that would give you access, then you lose access. So the only way that you maintain access is by just simping along, if you will. What's interesting is, when you operate on principle and not on the hope for access, sometimes you're going to ruffle some feathers. We say things all the time. And when you guys used to hear from Garrett O'Boyle, when you get to hear from Steve Friend, who are now under the media gag order, even though they're not being paid, and now with this government shutdown looming, they may not get paid again. Isn't that something? So they had a deal that was supposed to pay them back pay and give them their paycheck back, and they may not even experience that unless something gets through. I think they'll actually suffer along gladly. They won't cry about that. But the Agents Association immediately got into the ear of Patel, which is what they did to Chris Wray, which is what they did to Jim Comey, which is why Kennedy's Law number 1 always holds. No matter who you nominate to be the FBI director, you get Jim Comey. That's Kennedy's Law. I'm going to be talking about Kennedy today a little bit because he's trying to still do the same thing that we all do, which is that we're more than happy to punch the FBI directly in the face when it does things publicly that are wrong and out of line. And we're also going to cut fairly when things are obviously true and you're getting run around by left or right-wing media spin. Go back to this little note here. The previous note, which came out on Friday, and it was crying about the unlawful firing and the real sadness that happened for all these agents who got basically 5 additional years on duty when they should have been removed 5 years ago. They got 3 more years and change more than I would have gotten in the same scenario. So it's hard for me to be sympathetic. I want you to see how she ends. This is the president of the FBI Agents Association. It's relevant in so much as this is the most powerful federal law enforcement agency in this country. They have the largest number of criminal investigators outside of like some of the DHS entities. Probably Border Patrol has more sworn agents, but they're under a different category. She says this: "Thank you for your continued dedication to the mission and to one another. Do you see that on the screen there? Your dedication to the mission and to one another. Nowhere in there is your constitutional oath, it turns out. And she signs it in solidarity. Natalie Barra. In solidarity. I read that and I thought, does that have significance? Is there some meaning there that I just can't remember? Because I feel like I've seen that before. And it turns out in solidarity is a very, very specific phrase. And it's used in labor unions and Marxist uprisings and anti-colonialism and social justice advocacy. Do these all sound like right-wing concepts to you? Interesting. Let me read a little bit here from the AI overview, because I went, and sometimes that's the actual best practice when you talk about using AI. They talk about it being like a large word model. What they can do is it can hone in on specific phrases and then give you where it was used. The term in solidarity, it has historical roots in 19th century France, evolving from a legal concept of shared responsibility to a powerful social and political idea in various movements, including labor, that's on the left, progressivism, that's on the left, and anti-colonial struggles, that sounds like radical leftists. It gained prominence as a rallying cry against individuals for collective action to support marginalized groups. What are marginalized groups? Oh, the aggrieved. Okay. And it was first seen in the French labor movement. Solidarity campaigns are also in existence with the Palestinian cause to support Central American refugees. The concept of solidarity emerged in France as a legal principle of obligation in solidum, where individuals are jointly liable for the debts of a group. That's like the reparations argument. Isn't that interesting, huh? Solidarity is a key term for progressive movements seeking to form social connection and a shared sense of purpose in the face of societal atomization caused by commerce and industry. It's anti-capitalist. Oh, who is this person again? This is the president that represents the FBI Agents Association. You guys will be shocked to find out that I parted ways with them under not very nice circumstances. I left the FBI Agents Association because they wanted to use my money every single month to go and back a thing called the Going Dark Initiative that the FBI Office of the Director was pushing under Chris Wray and under Jim Comey before him. Going dark was this idea that because technology had evolved to the point where there was this end-to-end encrypted applications, the FBI needed a skeleton key to be able to open all encryption on the outside chance that someone was doing something criminal. Kind of like they would need you to check your guns in to a locker that they could control on the outside chance that someone might use their firearms for something illegal. In other words, they wanted to violate your First Amendment ability to assemble, to speak freely, and so on, to be part of the press. And all of these things, the only cost is your safety, right? We just need to trade you your liberty for safety. And I said no. And I got a phone call from the previous FBI agent's president. And he was a guy out in Memphis, or he was in Nashville or something like that. And he spent an hour on the phone trying to convince me that I was wrong because I said one day I too will be a citizen without all the trappings of government. And I won't have the protection of a badge or a gun or credentials. And I didn't realize it was going to be so much sooner than it was. But I knew that that was coming for me. I knew it was going to be a thing. Why? Because I'm a regular guy. I was a regular guy before I was in the FBI. I'm a regular guy again today, it turns out. And ain't that something? In solidarity. That's how you end up with the problems we have right now. I'm bringing this up because there's a discussion about Chris Wray, about the possible criminal probe of the former FBI director. He has been awfully quiet, Chris Wray. Smart, if you ask me. Quite smart. ABC is reporting that Donald Trump has said that there's some major explaining to do, and that this criminal probe may exist, an investigation into potential lies by Director Chris Wray over false claims of the FBI's involvement in January 6th and the riot. Some of you have seen those claims of 274 agents in the crowd. We talked about it a little bit yesterday. President Donald Trump suggested a criminal investigation into Chris Wray, his appointee to lead the Bureau in his first term, after a conservative media outlet reported the false claim that FBI agents were involved in the attack on the U.S. Capitol, January 6, 2021. Quote, I would certainly imagine, I would think they are doing that. Trump said in a phone interview with NBC News when asked if the Justice Department would investigate Wray. Trump appointed Wray to lead the Bureau after the 2016 firing of Jim Comey. Comey was indicted in a grand jury charge last week for making false statements to Congress and obstructing congressional proceedings. Again, there's a few things to consider. The most upsetting of them is for all of the people out there saying that there was going to be a treason, a seditious conspiracy, there was going to be sedition outright, and that was the charge. And what they got him for was false statements, the single weakest sort of allegation that the FBI brings. Yes, they used him against General Flynn. Yes, it was novel then. It's pretty interesting. If that's the strongest tea that they could brew with the leaves that they had, it reminds you that a lot of the stuff that was done was explicitly legal and within the charge. And if we really had a serious country, we would have a Congress that wanted to rein in an FBI, and they could do that. Isn't that the part? Some of the stuff with Comey hinges on something real simple. Media leaks. Do you know that there are two people inside the FBI that have the explicit permission to do whatever the hell they want when it comes to talking to the media? They don't need permission because they are above the permission system. The people that usually get permission go through what's called the Office of Public Affairs. So that's not surprising to you. Anybody who's ever seen a public affairs officer in law enforcement knows what I'm talking about. If you're a rank and file officer in any sort of department, if you work even in management, let's say you're a lieutenant or you're a captain or whatever, you usually have to go and seek permission to give an official statement. If somebody asks for comment, you usually refer them to the Office of Public Affairs or some version thereof. Do you know who the Office of Public Affairs answers to? It turns out it answers to the Office of the Deputy Director and the Office of the Director in the FBI. So they don't need to ask anybody's questions because they are the ones who give that permission. In the same way that they don't have to ask anyone's permission to declassify certain things, and this was changed by Barack Obama under his executive orders. When they updated the executive orders to say who can and who cannot be an original classifying authority, they gave those to the people that actually possess the information. Now, it has to be FBI information, but there is no more, let's say, native information to a government agency than an investigation that they create and that they are actually launching. You think they're going to get Chris Wray on a false statement of all things? I mean, really? I can't, and I don't. I don't think it's coming. So for those of you that are waiting to find out that Chris Wray is going to pay for it, what we actually are going to end up learning is that not only was he authorized to do the thing that he did, he actually didn't lie about it. Remember, the document that was released 2 days ago or a couple days ago was explicitly created by the FBI. For what? They were justifying their funding and their usage and what they did. And I'm going to give you a little bit more background on it, and I'm going to reference our emeritus producer, Phil Kennedy, who's been getting kind of a couple of call outs here. And I think he's been kind of amused by it as well. So there's Phil Kennedy's piece. I want to show you guys something really important about what Phil called out yesterday on X. This is where it gets really fun. This is a text message thread from January the 6th, beginning at 3:06 p.m. local time, Eastern time, that he received with two of his colleagues, who I also know. They're not public names. The message goes out, don't self-deploy. The reason that they said don't self-deploy is because Phil, like everybody else in Washington Field that was in the third of the squads that got emails from this, got this email saying, you're part of this particular activation. You are going to be responding to the U.S. Capitol after 3 p.m. Well after the breach, well after all of the rioting was even starting to subside. They said, don't self-deploy. Phil says, for what? Then this person says, I've been deployed with ERT. That's the evidence response team. Okay, this is post 3:06 p.m., which means they were sending evidence response technicians. And they weren't just sending evidence response technicians. There's a later text message I've seen that said that he was heading over to the garage where they actually they gathered up, where they had all their evidence equipment and their specialized vehicles. All right. He says, I've been deployed with ERT. Wish me luck. Be safe. Check in periodically, says another colleague. Phil says, I've got a strep test and I'm buying VapoRub because he was sick. He was deathly ill on January 6th, just like I was out of town. They said, you got it. I'll be at, and then the reference to the offsite location where the ERT was gathering up. And the response is prayers. We have this background understanding of what happened on January the 6th, which is far more nuanced. And as I made the argument yesterday, and I'm going to continue to make the argument to you, I'm going to say a little bit more today in a very succinct way. Imagine if you were really trying to compartmentalize a false flag operation to get Trump supporters jammed up. Would you really use the same investigative agency that's going to go out there and investigate them, that has overwhelmingly not Marxist loonies like the FBI Agents Association, but people that are more like me? I'm not that uncommon with my sentiment. I might be a little bit more outspoken. But there are many, many agents that signed up that have a background in law enforcement or military, or maybe they just believe in the sense of justice, and they actually think that rule of law matters and that the Constitution does. I've told you before that I think the majority of FBI agents are libertarian or conservative, but they're not the majority of FBI employees. Does that make sense? They've changed the culture by recruiting non-agents into and making it a liberal organization. And then the liberal types are now going in and recruiting more of their own types that see things the way they do. But a lot of the OG agents are relatively conservative. And they're also really, really hard to accept that the agency has changed so dramatically. But I give you In Solidarity as one of the great examples of such a change. The previous FBI Agents Association presidents were all men, and they were longtime agents that worked aggressive criminal and counterterrorism cases, the 9/11 type significance cases, and they had a really firm understanding of what I think the mission set was, even though they watched it creep. But seeing this woman who's much younger and signing In Solidarity, that tells you a lot. To me, it tells me a lot, if you will. And so I want you to understand that when I say I don't care about a government shutdown, it's because I know this agency and many others have also succumbed to the same sort of pressure. And there are other government employee groups that are signing things with similarities to In Solidarity, that this is not unique or one-off, and this is not something that nobody else is doing. All right? We're going to get deeper into the weeds on this, and of course, we'll talk about the shutdown in just a second here. Let me find my little button. Let's talk about my friends over at at Silent. We're talking about government overreach right now. Let's talk about Silent. SLNT at silentwithnovanvowels.com/Kyle. Use promo code Kyle at checkout. We have to face it. The government is using your phone. They did it on January 6th. They could do it on other times. They're using your phone as a tracking device, but they're not the only ones. Big tech, corporate data brokers, even cyber criminals, they're all fighting for a piece of your digital footprint, and they don't have to ask. They just take it. The FBI will actually just buy it from these private corporations. So that's why Silent exists. That's why my phone is sitting in this sleeve right now. Can you see it? It's a simple and very elegant little solution. You slap it into a Faraday bag and you block all wireless signals, cellular, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS, RFID, NFC. There may be others in the new ones. I know there's actually satellite signals coming out of the iPhone 17. No signal means no tracking. It means no remote access, no breadcrumbs. Nobody can find out where you're walking. They can't send you an ad for the Gap like they did in Minority Report. This is the same tech that's trusted by special operations teams worldwide. They are used to block signals, avoid surveillance, secure your comms. It also just gives you peace and quiet. You get a little bit of silence in this digital world. I find myself a lot more at peace when I put my bag, put my phone in the bag, and then I sit down and have dinner with my kids. SLNT.com/Kyle. They also have brilliant layouts for their backpacks. Check out the E3 Everyday Faraday backpack that you're seeing on the screen. I carried it the other day when I went to the range. It's really nice to be able to have all your stuff stashed in there in one place, and it has great pockets for everything. I actually was able to go and pull my microphones out, pull my little tripod setup out, get everything, and it was all in pitch dark while I was setting up in the shooting range in the dark because I knew where all my stuff was because it's very well organized. This is available to you and your family. You can protect them, your freedom, your digital footprint. Drop your phone in a silent Faraday sleeve and get off the grid. Be completely silent and get away from the outside world. We all need a little bit of peace and a little free space from anxiety. We're going to be talking about more of this here. Let's get into the government shutdown. Now, one of the things that is being discussed right now is a question of what are we funding with this government? And for me, there is nothing more real than talking about federal law enforcement. There are good parts of it and there are bad parts of it. The good parts are stopping cartels. They are shutting down our border. They are arresting illegal aliens who are firing laser pointers into Marine helicopters or military helicopters that are flying over Portland. That's the work that's supposed to be done. The problem is you can turn around and weaponize that and use it on people that we like. You can go in and bust down churches. You can stop people from praying outside of abortion clinics. You can go and arrest parents who are talking at school board meetings and saying, hey, stop putting radical gender ideology into my 6-year-old's head. So it can be done in a good way and a bad way. One of the interesting things is the people on the political left are right now fighting, and they are hoping to unmask. They're trying to unmask the people that are doing the work. And I sit in this really strange space when it comes to masks, because I think if you have a federal job, if you have a public-facing, non-classified job like I used to have, they give you an ID for a reason. They give you credentials for a reason. They give you a badge that is shiny for a reason. They give you placards that say what agency you work for a reason. You're supposed to go out there and represent yourself as a servant of the public. Not for the mission, by the way, and for those next to you, for the Constitution and the American people who fund it. That's what's supposed to happen. But I also don't want to have to shoot somebody in the front yard of my house in front of my kids. And if somebody wants to follow me home from work, because there is this new attitude on the political left that if you're part of the Gestapo, if you're part of the fascists that are in our government, and they've been emboldened and empowered, if that's like what they believe, I feel really sympathetic. It's not a black and white issue for me about the masking situation. So we're hearing a lot of this like rumbling about things that don't actually make nearly as much sense. This is a question from Peter Ducey about people on the left, and I think they're arguing in bad faith, and I'm going to try to make that argument for the rest of the show, that this is a bad faith discussion when it comes to whether or not we should be funding government and whether or not they can sneak some things in. And on top of it, what are they trying to fund? What was this shutdown all over? Remember, the guys in the Republican caucus, the people that were like working with Mike Johnson, they all wanted to pass a clean CR with Biden-level spending. So it's not exactly conservative, and it's certainly not cutting back on government costs. They wanted to spend tons of money to the point where I'm disgusted that we continue to have this system. And I also told you we're going to get a CR whenever it happens. This is a discussion about masks, because that's what's really important. Again, shut it all down. You won't see any tears from me. You will see the looming shutdown from the major media. Here's Peter Ducey representing Fox asking about something that's totally outlandish because we want to now unveil federal law enforcement like that's somehow a real issue.
Two Democratic senators now, Cory Booker and Alex Padilla, have a new bill out. They want to require CBP and ICE officers to have legible IDs, and they don't want CBP or ICE officers covering their faces. Would you ever sign that?
Well, they wouldn't be saying that if they didn't hate our country, and they obviously do. I'm surprised that they would do it, knowing a little bit about them. I don't know them well, but these officers are doing a tremendous job. They're great patriots. If you expose them because of statements like have been made by Democrats and others on the left, usually, mostly, I think probably exclusively, you put them in great danger, tremendous danger. And it's sort of funny when people picket in front of Columbia, in front of Harvard, and they have masks on, more than masks. I mean, you can't see anything. Nobody complains about that. But when a patriot who works for ICE or Border Patrol puts a mask on so that they won't recognize him and his family, so they can lead a little bit of a normal life after having worked so hard and so dangerously, there's a problem with that. So they have this is the problem with the Democrats. They have a lot of bad things going on in their heads. They've really become they've lost their confidence, number one, and they've become somewhat deranged.
Can you not love it a little bit? They've become somewhat deranged. I do think that's funny. Okay, what are we talking about here? We're talking about something that is a minute issue that is not sort of what's good for the goose is good for the gander. At the end of the day, like my principal would say, yeah, you shouldn't be wearing a mask. And yet you've got masked leftists and nobody's crying about that. And all of this stuff goes back to what I talked about yesterday, which is that we are now getting a second chance to address what happened in 2020. Do any of you remember weirdos running around wearing masks in 2020? Yeah, that's when it started. But before that, was that common? I go to church and I see somebody in the pews that's wearing an N95 respirator. Why? There were people that had cancer before. There were people that had immune deficiencies before. And not one person that I remember who wasn't like an Asian person directly from China wore a mask. And I give Asian people a pass for just for the sake of humor right now, just so you guys understand. If you're Asian and you were a mask wearer before 2018, then you're still cool with me wearing a mask. I think it's weird, but like that's because I think some other things are weird too. But nobody wore them previously. And they're not wearing them because they're so worried about health, although there's probably some mental illness that's built into that. They're actually wearing them for one real specific reason. It's identity hiding. We're trying to see people hide their identity. So what did Donald Trump say in that little clip right there? He made a couple of statements, and he always does these rambling answers. Part one, hey, these people have a dangerous job, and it's being more dangerous because they've been glorified as bad guys. They've been called fascists. Who did that? Oh, this guy did that. This is coming from national and state level. There's various different places, from the city council in Portland, like we played you yesterday, to the governor of California signing a ban on masks, which doesn't have any effect on the federal government, to now senators at the federal level. Everybody wants to go and take the masks off. It used to be that in every single municipality that you can think of, there were anti-mask rules that said if you were participating in a crime, it was actually an enhancement if you were wearing a mask. And the mask itself was a new charge. And that all went away after 2020. And it allowed a bunch of these Antifa clowns to go out there and run wild. And they did so during the BLM riots, which is why I talked about the FBI kneeling for it. And they went on and they've been doing it ever since. They've been empowered because they can feel anonymous and feel like they can't be tracked. Little do they know, unless they're running around with the Faraday bag, they probably are easily tracked. And by the way, that Faraday bag, when you take it out, you still are going to come back on the grid at some point in time. Here's Gavin Newsom. Again, we've played this a couple times, but Newsom is saying the same thing. So local, state, federal, all making an issue of something that they don't want to actually enforce for, like, you know, the people that actually agree with them, their militant sort of ideology implementers.
That's happening in the United States of America. Masked men jumping out of unmarked cars, people disappearing, no due process, no oversight, zero accountability, happening in the United States of America today. People ask, well, is authoritarianism, you're being hyperbolic? Bull, we're being hyperbolic. If you're a black and brown community, it's here in this country. And so I'm deeply proud that I had the privilege of signing the nation's first bill to address the issue of masking, also to require you have simple identification, to your point. I mean, if some guy jumped out of an unmarked car in a van with a mask on, tried to grab me, I mean, by definition, you're going to push back.
Right. Except when they yell things like federal agents, you're under arrest and things like this, because everybody has a protocol for it. Now, this is not the only thing they're talking about. They're also talking about healthcare. And why are we not giving healthcare to illegal aliens, these hardworking people that make our economy run, even though they broke the law to get here? So I'm going to show you two clips that have the same energy. They're both actors, it turns out. One of them's called Gavin Newsom. That's who we just showed. Here's another one. This is Rosie O'Donnell. She's a comedian / activist, apparently. Where these people decided that because they have money and an audience for something that is unrelated, like she used to be allegedly funny, I guess. Now they think that everybody needs to hear their bad ideas. The best is, and I'm going to play this clip specifically because at the end of this clip, what you're going to hear is she cites her therapist, claiming that maybe she's blown this out of proportion. You know what? Why pay a therapist when you can just go out and have Nicole Wallace and say dumb things to dumb people who agree with you? The therapist is challenging you to try to fix yourself. And she's like, no. The therapist is wrong. Why is the therapist asking me these questions? Anyway, this is the same energy as Newsom with a little bit less emphatic, because now it's a soft female touch.
When people say, I changed my mind, we have to say, welcome back to reality. Let's all be Americans together, right? Because what's happening is not only happening to Democrats, it's happening to everyone. And when the Medicaid cuts go in, old people are going to start to die. To die. What he's done yet hasn't even hit us yet. Right. And if he's not stopped now, we have lost our country. And I don't know, Nicole, how it is that some people cannot see it. My therapist said, why are you so upset? And I said to her, why are you not?
Yeah. Yeah, I have that conversation too, because the gaslighting that I think you're alluding to, if you're a thoughtful, informed person, you do stop and say, well, maybe it is me.
Well, maybe it is. Yeah. She just framed it as a moral argument, by the way. Did you hear that, Nicole Wallace? She just said, because I'm a thoughtful and I'm a good person, I reflect on myself and I say, is it me? No, it's not. It's this evil system. Again, what is that belief? It's the thing that we've been talking about for a couple days now, but I want to hit it home again. Consider this. The hard left says that all people are innate good and the systems betray them. The systems, these centrists that have hopes fizzling out on stopping the shutdown. The people that are upset that Congress has less than 24 hours. The odds don't look good. CNN said, shut down looms. It's all ominous. Oh. And Rosie says, I pay a therapist. What does she pay a therapist? Because she's really worried about what? I wrote it down here. She's upset about Medicaid being defunded. Does anyone know where the requirement for the federal government to fund medical coverage for all people is in the Constitution? I just struggle with how ridiculous this government is. Leftists have grown it to a point that's insane for 120 years. They've made it huge and unwieldy. And then then it's not enough. And if you don't keep doing it, then you're the bad person. I'm going to give you our little trigger warning that we do here. It's not a trigger warning. It's a joyless read warning. Okay? Joyless read warning coming up. Joy Reid is about to say some things that she is saying in a bad way. She is arguing against these things. And when you listen to them, you're going to be like, holy crap, I'm down with all of that. She's straight up making the argument that I have been telling you, that if we rolled back 120 years of bad policy and constitutional amendments, we would end up in a better United States. And the argument she makes is then you wouldn't have you have to give up all your government things. And I don't even know if she's able to make a logical argument. She's actually making our argument. Get prepared to not understand why Joy Reid thinks this is a bad idea. Joyless Reid, warning, incoming. Here she goes.
Is that if you go back before the 20th century, there were no income taxes, there were no regulations on business. You could earn as much money as you want, leave 100% of it to your children with no taxes. Right. That's the world they want back. And to get it back, they need society to change. They need people to be less modern. They need people to want fewer things.
I don't need them to want fewer things. I just need government to provide less of it. Because there is no requirement for government. Wait a minute, did you say that there were no regulations on business, there was no income tax, you could leave all of your money to your kids, and she's got a problem with that? Because modernity seems like we've actually created something horrible. We're living in this crazy idea. I'm going to play it one more time, because everything she said, I'm like, yes, how do I get that? What do I need to do? I need to have less things. The things she's talking about are governmental interventions and government planning and government policy. Institutions. I'd gladly take less of that. Imagine if you could spend your own money on your own things and make your own decisions. She's talking about that you need to cede freedom. It's crazy. All right, one more time. Here it goes. It's fun.
Is that if you go back before the 20th century, there were no income taxes, there were no regulations on business. You could earn as much money as you want, leave 100% of it to your children with no taxes. Right. That's the world they want back.
Yes, that's the world I want back. How do I get that world back? What do I got to do? Less government, shut it down, baby. Let's do it. I'm seriously, today's my favorite day. Today is shut down. It's September 30th. Congress has less than 24 hours. Now they got less than 12 hours. Close of business at midnight. The government is shut down. Oh my goodness. And so what is this fight over? Let's talk about it. Let's talk a little bit. Centrists are worried, by the way. They tried. Centrists are leftists that are just, they're leftists from 20 years ago. Centrists are like Donald Trump, who are 90s Democrats. That's what a centrist is. Donald Trump is not right wing. Right wing is what Joy just described. I'm that. Oh, no income tax? Done. No property taxes? Done. Minimal government? Done. Neighbors have to get together to figure out how to fund their own roads? Done. I'm into it. Let's do it. Imagine if you had all of your tax dollars back in your pocket, and then people were like, hey, we're going to need $100 a month from you, and we're going to use that to maintain our roads for all like 1,000 of us that use this road. And you're like, yep, I'm down with that. Okay, cool. How are we going to fund the federal road structure? I don't know. We're going to do tariffs. It's going to be a consumption tax based on things that get imported in that we don't make domestically. Oh, okay. That sounds good too. Yeah, I'm into that. Fine. Centrist senators are giving up hopes of avoiding a government shutdown this week after a contentious meeting on Monday with President Trump and congressional leaders, and it failed to make progress on the short-term funding bill. Well, what was this contentious meeting? What did it look like? I think this is the right clip here. This is Hakeem Jeffries. He was really upset about this, and he was complaining that Trump went to the golf course. Do you know whose job it is to write a congressional budget? Congress. Do you know whose job it is not? The White House. It is not the president's job. Let's see if this is the right clip. I think it is.
The president agreed to a meeting, and then he pulled the meeting. Now he's fled town and is on the golf course at the Riders Cup in New York. It makes no sense. The president,
he went out and he was on the golf course. Well, guess what, Hakeem Jeffries? When you get to do your homework, then you get to go and hang out on the golf course too. But you didn't do your homework. You've had all year. All year. What was the major contention here? What was the major issue that we have? Apparently, J.D. Vance was going out and speaking on behalf of Trump. I think this is good stuff. I like J.D. Vance stuff. More of this. He's getting a chance to show, I don't know, his face to the public and kind of start his 2028 bid. I assume that's what's going on here. Here he is answering the question. What was the failed negotiation about?
Frustrated about the fact that this negotiation has not taken place until today. But if you look at the original thing they did with this negotiation, it was a $1.5 trillion spending package, basically saying to the American people, we want to give massive amounts of money, hundreds of billions of dollars to illegal aliens for their health care, while Americans are struggling to pay their health care bills. That was their initial foray into this negotiation. We thought it was absurd. We told them it was absurd, and now they come in here saying that if you don't give us everything that we want, we're going to shut down the government. We think that's preposterous. We think it's totally unacceptable, and we think the American people are going to suffer because these guys won't do the right thing. Now, I want to make one final point here. You will hear a lot from Senate Democrats, from House Democrats about the fact that American health care policy is broken. Well, we know that American health care policy is broken. We've been trying to fix it for the 8 months that we've been in office, but every single thing that they accuse about being broken about American health care is policy the Democrats have supported for the past decade. So if they want to talk about how to fix American health care policy, let's do it. The Speaker would love to do it. The Senate Majority Leader would love to do it. Let's work on it together, but let's do it in the context of an open government that's providing essential services to the American people. That's all that we're proposing to do, and the fact that they refuse to do that shows how unreasonable their position is. I think we're headed to a shutdown because the Democrats won't do the right thing. I hope they change their mind, but we're going to see. I'll let the Speaker say a few words.
How about this? Let me just say a few words. My few words are this. Own it. Say Republicans say, we are not going to fund this government because the government doesn't need to be doing what it's doing. There's no charter or mandate for health care. Why do we have to keep placating people and acting like it's the federal government's job to make sure that they have health insurance? I don't understand it. I seriously do not. You don't need it. Most of you probably don't need health coverage. And those of you that do, can you fix it on your own? Are you doing your own things? Are you working out? Are you eating well? Are you putting less junk in your body? Or are you making the American taxpayer fund it? Whenever I write those checks at the end of the year, it's gross to me how much I have to spend on things that I don't want to spend money on. I don't even spend money on my own health care. I think I've told you guys this before. Zero health insurance. Yeah, I've got coverage through the VA. Theoretically, I could go there. I'd have to go get set up. The last time I tried to go to the VA, they wouldn't let me in because I wouldn't wear a mask, it turns out, since we're talking about those things. I do not understand that if we pretend like the government's job is to be involved in this, which is why J.D. Vance is a centrist, okay? He's the people that they're talking about. They actually think that the government ought to do this. And I don't. Not at all. I actually get a kick out of what Donald Trump had to say about this because he decided to go out and troll these clowns in only Donald Trump's fashion with AI videos, which I'll play you right after this. I'm going to do a quick little break for a Spotify ad here, so you guys may hear something on the audio side from them. And if not, then make sure you guys are liking us over on Rumble. If you're watching on Rumble, hit the thumbs up. Get us on the leaderboard. We'd appreciate all of that. If you are watching over on YouTube, hit the like. Make sure you're sharing the channel and subscribing. We're going to cross 14,000 probably this week, I think. So that'd be great if you guys keep doing that. Same story on X. Hit the heart button. If you guys want to support us financially, you can join us at Locals. I don't beg for it. It is a fun place to do it. You guys get access to the call-in show, which we do in 2 days on Thursday nights, where you can call in and talk to us, talk to me, and you guys get to hear what each other think and what he sound like on the chats for those of you that are live listeners, or for those of you who just have some thoughts and you just want to share them. Share it on Spotify. It's KyleSerafinshow.com. Again, Locals is KyleSerafin.com. We really appreciate all of your support on all of those things. How about we get a little bit of humor into this? Donald Trump took this very, very seriously, and he decided to go out and do what is disgusting and totally inappropriate. We're going to hear some crying from the mainstream media on this as well. Trump decided to post an AI video showing Hakeem Jeffries with a Mexican-style mustache and sombrero, and Chuck Schumer saying the quiet part out loud, even though this is obviously AI. This is obviously a deep fake. This is not real. I'll just say it again so we don't get hit with that. Here's some dudes saying some things that actually sound closer to reality.
Look, guys, there's no way to sugarcoat it. Nobody likes Democrats anymore. We have no voters left because of all of our woke trans bullshit. Not even black people want to vote for us anymore. Even Latinos hate us. So we need new voters. And if we give all these illegal aliens free health care, we might be able to get them on our side so they can vote for us. They can't even speak English, so they won't realize we're just a bunch of woke pieces of shit, you know, at least for a while until they learn English and they realize they hate us too.
Oh. Well, that wasn't real, but it does sound real. Trump did say something very similar. What did Trump tell Politico about the impending government shutdown? This is an entire article written by Politico. That's the headline. What Trump told Politico. I've never seen writers of politics and supposedly news coverage injecting themselves into the story so much. What did he tell us? You're never going to believe it. What's more clickbait than that? You know what he said? Quote, okay, so let me see. President Trump is unconcerned that Americans could sour on him and that if the GOP owns the shutdown that happens on Wednesday, he said, quote, I don't worry about that because people are smart. They see what's happening. The Democrats are deranged, which is essentially what he did by tweeting out that little video. Now, Lawrence O'Donnell is outraged by this. It is too disgusting to even air. You could find it on your own if you want to see it. And he's going to ask Hakeem Jeffries for his very serious opinion. Again, Hakeem, if you did your homework, then you can go to the golf course too. But since you didn't, you guys are going to sit here and let the government shut down. And by the way, I'm ready to have a little fiesta for that too.
They're going to see it. They'll see it in other ways. It's easy to find, but it is absolutely disgusting in every way. It is a lie. It's the man you met with has now lied about what you said after that meeting. Could you give us your reaction to that Trump posted video tonight?
It's a disgusting video, and we're going to continue to make clear bigotry will get you nowhere. We are fighting to protect the health care of the American people in the face of an unprecedented Republican assault on all the things, Medicaid, Medicare, the Affordable Care Act. Republicans.
Straight up. What do those have to do with the federal government and the requirements that we have in our Constitution? Is there a single thing there that is defensible and required? No. You just become really sort of complacent and you expect it. For some reason, we have this expectation that big daddy government is going to come and save us. These are also the same people that are saying if we just had a more perfect system, all of these wonderful people with all their wonderful ideas would all be able to thrive and flourish. It's an absurd proposition. It is sophomoric, if not, sort of adult toddlers. And we're going to talk about adult toddlers out in Portland. Let's play somebody who's gone even further back. Now, this guy, is he in Depends yet? Most likely. Someone said Chuck Schumer is actually in really poor health and that he had a hard time getting away from the Capitol on January 6th. It doesn't surprise me. He does put on a brave front. Here he is actually at the microphone, actually speaking, not with the Mexican music in the background.
We have very large differences on health care and on their ability to undo whatever budget we agree to through rescissions and through impoundment, as well as pocket rescissions.
Okay. Is this the same Chuck Schumer that in 1996 thought that we shouldn't be giving away free things to illegal aliens because it incentivizes them to come here? I think it is. You guys tell me, is this the same guy?
This is an anti-fraud amendment. All over where we go, people say, well, why can't you stop illegal immigrants or others from coming here? And the number one answer we give our constituents is when they come here, they can get jobs, get benefits against the law because of fraud. And here, the gentleman from Florida has put together the most effective anti-fraud measure we can find without it changing the actions of the government one bit. And we find all this opposition. Ladies and gentlemen of this chamber, what I worry about is that this bill, which started out with good intentions, whether you agree with it or disagree with it, is going to end up being the same kind of thing that the public gets angry with us on. We say we're doing something, and we do nothing. Because every time someone makes a rational and small proposal to get something done, people say, well, what about this hypothetical, that hypothetical, etc. I urge support of this amendment. If you believe you want to stop fraud in immigration, you have no choice but to support this amendment.
Wow. You know, when I tell you that I think that Republicans today are just 90s Democrats, that's the 90s Democrat. 1996, Chuck Schumer trying to shut down the fraud that allows illegals to be incentivized to come here. And today he's arguing that we need to fund it with billions and billions of dollars for unknown reasons. All right, JD Vance also answering questions here on the White House lawn, talking about the same exact thing. We're almost there. We're going to talk about the fun stuff in Portland because I got some fun little clips. If you guys want, I'll put the 1990s Chuck Schumer over at kylesarafin.com for those of you who want to see it and be able to cite it.
You don't shut that government down. We have disagreements about healthcare policy, but you don't shut the government down. You don't use your policy disagreements as leverage to not pay our troops, to not have essential services of government actually function. You don't say the fact that you disagree about a particular tax provision is an excuse for shutting down the people's government and all the essential services that come along with it. If you look at what Chuck Schumer has said in the past consistently, it's whatever our disagreements are, let's negotiate with them. Let's talk about them. Let's figure out a bipartisan solution, but you don't shut the government down. In other words, you don't put a gun to the American people's head and say, unless you do exactly what Senate and House Democrats want you to do, we're going to shut down your government. That's exactly what they're proposing out there. Now, we have to remember, they're very frustrated. They say that they're very frustrated about the fact that this negotiation has not taken place until today. But if you look at the original thing they did with this negotiation, it was a $1.5 trillion spending package, basically saying to the American people, we want to give massive amounts of money, hundreds of billions of dollars to illegal aliens for their health care, while Americans are struggling to pay their health care bills. That was their initial foray into this negotiation.
Doesn't that seem like the exact opposite of 1996 Chuck Schumer that says you shouldn't incentivize illegal aliens by giving them a bunch of free stuff and making them come here and that we should combat fraud? I mean, it does. Of course it does. So what? 30 years difference. Totally different guy. The difference also is a mainstream media that is 100% behind one position. And let's see if we can frame this in a very interesting way. Let's see if we can frame this about Donald Trump's incompetence. You guys know I don't have any race, any dog in the race. I don't have any horse in the race. I don't care if Trump does good or bad. I'm just going to call what I see as I see it. And I may not be right, but that's just my opinion. But this looks really clear. This is CNN. This is Caitlin Collins, who has some animus about the guy. She's going to act like Donald Trump didn't even know what was going on. I love how JD Vance just immediately just parries aside with this thing and continues on.
On to what Senator Schumer said, that there were aspects about health care ending for certain people that the president was learning about for the first time in that meeting. And was the president open to a deal on the ACA subsidies?
Well, I'm highly skeptical that the president was learning about it for the first time, thanks to Chuck Schumer. But what I will say is, look, we have put a $50 billion rural hospital fund into the big, beautiful bill that we passed a few months ago, because we know that under Biden administration's policies, there are a lot of small town hospitals, a lot of rural health care that was getting shut down and that was struggling. We're trying to fix that problem. In fact, we're happy to work with Democrats to fix that problem. We want to work across the aisle to make sure that people have access to good health care. We are not going to let Democrats shut down the government, take a hostage unless we give them everything that they want. That's not how the people's government has ever worked. That's certainly not how it's going to work under the Trump administration.
Okay, there it goes. All right, so what are the things that they want to do? This is the other piece of it. We're just seeing sort of this quote-unquote resist posture that continues on. The Pentagon has called up 200 National Guard troops to go into Portland after Trump's announcement on it. And the first thing in the summary, which is coming from Reuters, is Oregon sues to challenge Trump's troop deployment. Hegseth put 200 troops under federal authority. Trump says the troops are going to go into multiple Democrat-run cities. They're going to try to stop something that is going on. Now, you're seeing in the background pictures from the most current riot situation. Portland is a mess. When I hear people claim that Portland is America, it's the same category of New York, of Washington, D.C. It's not America. It doesn't feel like America. When you go there, you're like, ooh, I feel like I might need a tomahawk axe, to quote Seth MacFarlane. Is that his name? Seth MacFarlane? Whatever his name is. Scott MacFarlane, CBS guy. You might need a tomahawk axe. I straight carried a small melee type weapon in case I needed to defend myself up close and I needed something that didn't have to be reloaded. That's not normal for me. I'm like a pretty aggressive guy when it comes to self-defense, but I don't carry a freaking tomahawk with me when I go out. I carry one extra magazine when I go to church because the possibility is maybe a higher threat target. I carry one extra magazine if I go out to like a Costco because there's a million people at Costco. But if I go for a jog, if I go for anywhere else in my life, if I just go to my normal grocery store in my neighborhood, I'm just carrying my pistol with whatever's in it. That's it. I don't carry backup knives and body armor and crazy stuff. In Portland, I wore body armor to go out to dinner. And I'm not exaggerating. And I didn't think that that was an unnecessary move because there are weirdos everywhere, all over the place, and they are empowered. And they look something like this. This is Nick Shirley. He's a kind of on the ground type man in the street type reporter. He's really ballsy. I actually like him. He's a young kid. He's out there. Here he is being accosted by this Antifa clown. This is exactly the kind of aggressive mentality that we saw. And stay tuned to the end of this little clip because apparently somebody from DHS up on the building decided to light this guy up. I mean, they must have been looking through a rifle scope to throw a little visible laser on this guy's chest. I've actually never seen this move. I'm a big fan of what this looks like. Whether it was just a laser pointer, like indicating where the problem was for someone else to come in, or whether this was a potential threat where they were going to actually off this dude if he got rowdy. I suspect that they are probably monitoring these people in the crowd. They definitely were doing that in Portland when I was there. We had legitimate undercover, low visibility surveillance teams rolling with the Antifa mobs. I think that may be going on here. All right, watch this.
Get the fuck out. Hey, what are you doing? Hey, I didn't do anything. Hey, get the fuck out. You get out of here.
Obviously.
Don't try to hit me. Get out of here. Well, I have get out of here. Don't come back. Get away from me. See you again? Get away from me, sir. Get the Where are you? You're pushing me onto the road. Get the fuck out of here. Let me move. Let me get out. If you're gonna let me get out. I'm gonna smash that fucking camera. Stop it. Stop. Sir, stop it. Stop sticking your cameras in people's fucking face. I have the right to be here.
Running him down.
Okay, did I say I have the right to be here.
Okay, look at the lights above.
You have DHS watching you right there. Lasered on you. You have a sniper lasered on you right now. I don't give a fuck. Stop it.
I've never seen that before.
Stop sticking your camera in people's face. I didn't do anything wrong. You have a sniper on you right now. You have a sniper on you right now.
I've never seen somebody use a visible green laser or red laser like that to point out someone that was being a threat and engaging with someone. Yeah, Nick Shirley needs to be careful. He said he's looking to get some security. He is fearless, but that may be foolish as well. That city does not know consequences. That city is completely engaged in insanity in my book, because it is a bunch of grown-up toddlers that have never been spanked. And those spankings are now going to have to cause serious physical injury or death, unfortunately. They've gone and killed people that were Trump supporters previously. In 2020, we saw that. The marshals ran that guy down and ended up shooting him. It's a real dangerous scenario. Really not a good scenario where you're like rolling out there. If you're distracted by a camera and a microphone, you cannot watch your own back. So I really hope that he's a little bit more cautious. And, you know, at the end of the day, as long as there's an exit strategy, Portland is one of those places that is so overrun with insanity and leftism that what else are you going to do? It clearly needs a tourniquet of some kind. It just also needs, like, the locals don't want that. They keep voting for the same exact thing. How are you going to stop it? I don't know how you stop it. I told you I wouldn't let this story go, too. You guys remember we talked about this the other day. Thwarted plot to cripple cell phone service in New York, speaking of not America, was bigger than first thought. Sources. I love sources, by the way. Sources is my favorite. Sources is my favorite thing to cite. Let me just hit this real quick. The United States Secret Service discovered what they said was a China-linked plot. What did we tell you when I had George Hill come on and talk about these quote-unquote secret server farms that were full of SIMs that could actually go out and text and cripple telecom? There's more to this story, and I have it on background right now that I'm not going to expose because it's not my story to expose. There's a lot more to this story, and a lot of the speculations that you heard me and George Hill talk about, they are most likely true. The first one was the nation state actor piece, right? They claimed that it was going to be used for fraud and for cyber criminals and some other nonsense. Okay. But then we started talking about ROI and why would you have it in a specific city? Why would you have it outside of New York City when that's some of the most expensive real estate? And the answer is exactly this. China-linked plot that could cripple every cell phone tower in the nation's largest cities. One of the other questions we asked was, is this the only city where this happened? I'm going to leave that question just sitting out there. Agents from Homeland Security Investigations found an additional 200,000 SIM cards at another location in New Jersey. That's double the 100,000 SIM cards already found that were set up along hundreds of servers seized at 5 other vacant offices and apartments around the city. Now you're talking 6 locations, 300,000+. They said the shelves were full of gear capable of sending 30 million anonymous text messages per minute. They could completely overrun cell phone communications, black out cellular service for the city that also spies on those responses for counterterrorism and emergencies. That's the real crazy thing. According to sources, take it for what it's worth, but I actually think this is correct. The investigation began after several high-level people, including one person with direct access to Donald Trump, were targeted not only by swatters, but with actual threats received on their private telephones. Authorities have so far made no arrests. And that kind of tells you everything, doesn't it? Why? Why is our federal law enforcement engaged in like shenanigans and stupidity when they really should be doing this? This is what you need your FBI to do. This is the actual job of the FBI. A nation state incursion into our largest cities, attacking infrastructure, that's an FBI job. They don't actually need to be going out and protecting ICE facilities, which they are not actually set up to do. But that's the story that we get from this CBS coverage here. Pam Bondi has directed FBI, DEA, and other investigative agencies to do physical security at ICE facilities. She signed a memo saying that agents from all those different agencies can adjust their priorities and start guarding immigration and customs enforcement facilities. The move, which she hinted at on Friday, came after one detainee was killed and 2 others were injured in the shooting that happened last week in Dallas on Wednesday, a week ago tomorrow. She cast that attack as the latest in extreme political violence. Well, it's hard to say what exactly that violence is, but yeah, it does seem to be pretty aggressive, left-leaning, and I would say it's relatively mainstream as well. There's a story from NBC right here. Zoran Mandami and Andrew Cuomo are the 2 most likely choices that are going to end up as one of the mayors. One of them is going to be the mayor of New York City. Eric Adams has left the race, and your other option on the right is Curtis Sliwa. And I don't think that he has a strong choice or chance in New York because you've got like hard radical, like imagine the bad decision theater that these are the 2 choices you're going to have to choose between as a New Yorker. A 30-something-year-old Democratic socialist guy who's hard leftist, or the guy that failed COVID policy and was accused of getting handsy with women, who's ancient. Andrew Cuomo. I'm telling you that we're retouching 2020 again, and we are obviously doing that. New Yorkers are going to get a chance, especially like people in New York City, are going to get a chance to vote for Andrew Cuomo again after he was removed. Ain't that something? It's not a good scenario, folks. I'm going to give you kind of a realistic attitude on what it's going to look like, what the actual shutdown scenario will actually be, since we've talked about it. Before we do, let me just give you one last sort of piece of evidence that the hard left shifting has happened at the state, federal, and local level. There's another story that came out about J.B. Pritzker, who is a human, what is he? He was like the balloon girl from Willy Wonka. It's in my head. I saw it the other day, and he was wearing a purple shirt. He's what, like 400 pounds. He looks like a big, round, blueberry. Like he ate the 3-course Willy Wonka magic gum. In any case, he's calling immigration officers an attack on Americans, despite the fact that their job is to go after not Americans. I think that's what he does, right? He's making some really wild statements here. And so when we start talking about, we are only a couple of weeks away from Charlie Kirk having been shot. And we have no problem still ramping up this rhetoric. It's not going anywhere. By the way, this is a great picture from NBC. What you're seeing are a bunch of Border Patrol guys wearing masks. They're walking through Chicago. They look very out of place because they're all in uniform. And then above the head of one of the guys is Trump Tower. I'm sure that was a totally accidental shot here. Let's see this.
Times. For Donald Trump and the MAGAs in Congress, this is not about fighting crime or about public safety. This is about sowing fear and intimidation and division among Americans. It was about creating a pretext to send armed military troops into our communities. This is about consolidating power in Donald Trump's hands. What he plans to do with that power, now or during the 2026 elections, should worry all of us. When you add to that the Trump administration's effort to label as dangerous free speech critical of him, White House senior staff calling the Democratic Party fascist, the Trump-appointed FCC chair threatening to revoke broadcast licenses and the approval of a merger in order to silence late-night comedians, Trump's threats to jail political opponents. You cannot call this anything except an attack on the Constitution of...
Shut up. First of all, we already lived through the Biden administration, which was legitimately fascistic. What is fascism? We've done entire segments on this show about it previously. If you understand what fascism is, it's private ownership with heavy government influence for their preferred policies. What else did we learn about the Twitter files other than that? that the FBI, that the intelligence community agencies, that federal law enforcement, that CISA and others all leaned aggressively on big tech and on the people that actually control our voices. Not late night comedians who have millions of dollars, but like you and me and our ability to go out there and talk. And I'm not one of those late night comedians with millions of dollars. We had a fascistic enterprise where they got rid of people they didn't like for speech. They went after Christians. They went after parents at school board meetings. I'm not saying this like some random talking head on the right. I'm saying this as a guy who saw what the FBI did and spoke out about it when that happened. And by the way, they're allowed to do that. This is the craziest part of the whole story for me. Our current federal law enforcement is actually authorized to do the things that they did. This is the biggest problem. This is why I keep arguing for de-weaponization. The argument is not like, oh, now we've got it, let's go after the bad guys. I don't like what Brendan Carr did. That was a bad choice. You interrupted the enemy when they were making a great mistake. You're out there interrupting their terrible attitudes. Like, let them cancel themselves. Their ratings are crap. Don't give them a reason to hide behind fascism and get a few people on the base motivated for one night or two nights to go back and watch Jimmy Kimmel. None of that's good. Let them fall apart on their own, because they will. That's what they do. But I will tell you, it's pretty amazing to give them that opportunity when we actually lived through the last 4 years and we actually know what happened. Again, the argument is not that the FBI or that the federal law enforcement agencies or even the intelligence community did things that they were not authorized to do. They did things that they were authorized to do. That's why you're not seeing the persecutions and the prosecutions that you thought you're going to see. That's why Jim Comey's indictment is for lying under oath about something. It's why Chris Wray is probably not in danger. It's why Brennan and Clapper, if they get hit, they're going to get hit with some like minor thing, testifying improperly. Not the actual things they did that subverted your trust in the institutions, right? That's the piece. And if you understand that they were actually operating within their scope, a system is what it does. That's an expression that people have to understand, like sort of operant design. The system is what it does. And what does it do? It gathers more power to itself. It forces things that are outside of its own orthodoxy to go and comply. Remember, the people that were out there telling you what you had to do for COVID, the people that were out there telling you what you had to do for vaccine mandates, they were telling you what you had to do for speech, what you could and couldn't talk about. COVID was a stand-in for a bunch of other ideas. Can you accept radical leftism or not? If you cannot, if you were going to be like Nicole Wallace and say, I've evaluated myself and I'm a good person, so my ideas are good and they can be universalized. I don't tell everybody they have to live the way that I live. I think it's better. That's why I live that way. But your situation is your own. I'm not going to go out there and tell you, oh, like you have a wife who works like, bah. I'm just telling you my wife doesn't like working in a business. She was always really sad and she's been really happy. And I've watched depression leave her for the thing that she does now, which is dealing with children, which is incredibly hard. It's way harder than a regular job. It never stops. It starts at, 5:25 in the morning and it goes all the way until 10 o'clock at night. It never ends being a parent full time, especially when you're a mom. But I think it's better. So that's why we live that way. But I wouldn't tell you that you must. I just say like, hey, look at the example. Look at people who are happy. Are they doing this? Look at people who are successful. Are they doing this? Or you could be like a crazy leftist. But there were people who were telling you what you could and couldn't do. And now they're saying some things that are explicitly wild. They're really, really wild. Remember some of the biggest voices that were out in the cancel culture that wanted to go out there and smash you and tell you that you were a fool, and they celebrated it. Now they're relegated to podcasts like me, which, I'm happy to have this microphone. But if I had a CNN microphone, I think it would be a little bit of a broader reach. And I think I could change some minds. The guys who lost that opportunity, Chris Cuomo, oh yeah, that Cuomo, the other Cuomo, right? And Don Lemon. Do you remember that those two guys would do a tag team buddy thing? I used to think that they were a joke. I've been on work trips when I didn't realize that those were real shows. I thought they were satire. They were so blatantly, ridiculously partisan. Now they have an opportunity to say what they actually think, and it is wild. I've got two clips that I want to end with. One of them is Don Lemon saying something that it's like, hey, bro, open that box if you want to. Isn't this a guy that's married, quote unquote, married, gay married to another man who's white? So there's that. And then there's Chris Cuomo, who's making claims that they also don't like. Because God forbid free speech. Remember, the people on the left, they don't really change their stripes. They may play to an audience for a little bit, but at the end of the day, they end up revealing themselves. These are the exact same guys that got canceled for CNN for the exact same reasons. Don Lemon first.
Men who look like you, men who vote like you, and men who sound like you.
Articulate.
White men.
Yeah.
Something is broken. Something is cracked deep inside when so many of you believe the answer to fear, to loss, to change is violence.
Sometimes violence is the answer, for sure.
Are you listening to me? I hope I'm saying it loud enough for the people in the back.
Say it again. No. The answer could be violence? Agreed. No big deal. How about this? Maybe we could cancel Elon. Oh, we can't cancel Elon because he's the richest, the second richest man in the world. Here is his former buddy from CNN, now on the totally mainstream, totally centrist News Nation, and crying about something that is actually really problematic. Can you really say that Christian identity is like a hate group? By the way, I'm going to do a whole thing on the ADL at some point. You guys will get a big kick out of this because they got some wild stuff. I went through the ADL website today. Check this out. Here we go.
The most powerful man in the media just wrote something that would get him fired if he worked for any self-respecting company, let alone a media platform. Okay? If we see an attack on the ADL...
Hold on. Any self-respecting media organization would fire this guy for free speech. Are they not exactly saying the same thing? Okay.
The Anti-Defamation League, remember this moment. Musk sent this after the shooting with a screenshot from the Jewish group labeling Christian identity as extremist. Musk wrote, the ADL hates Christians, therefore it is a hate group.
Hold on. Did you notice he just brushed past this? The ADL called Christian identity a hate group? Did you catch that part? Because he just brushed right past it. It was wild.
Everything about this is wrong. And to be honest, I first went to Elon and wanted him to explain this to me about, because, the guy's a genius, and he told me to piss off. And then it said I can't send him messages anymore. And
you tried to shame the world's richest man about something that he believed when he wrote it on his free speech platform, and he told you to piss off.
I find that regrettable. I was talking to him about maybe doing something on Twitter not too long ago. Talked to his.
He was hoping maybe I could make a deal, but then I asked him something to try to shame him because I'm a shamer, because I'm the same guy that I always have been. I'm so moderate and normal and coming from this politically privileged. Anyway, it's awesome. It's awesome. By the way, I'm going to end with two thoughts. I got a palate cleanse, but that's not it yet. Let me first just show you what's going to actually happen with this government shutdown. We're going to go to Oklahoma, where I went to college. We're going to go to Senator Markwayne Mullin, and he's going to tell you what happens during a government shutdown, since that's what today is. Anyway, I just wanted to end with showing you these people they're acting to be virtuous. They're pretending to be it, and they're saying it in a way like, aren't you so crazy for not agreeing with me? No, dude, I don't agree with you. Chris Cuomo, Don Lemon. None of you guys know what the hell's talking. You guys are too rich and too detached from reality. Come hang out with me sometime. You guys want to come and see reality? We'll go down to one of those leftist protests, and you're going to be thankful that I'm armed. I guarantee you. You will be hiding behind me, even though you're probably taller than I am. All right. I don't think Markwayne Mullin is very tall either. I got that impression from seeing some stuff on him. He's going to be real sensible. Oklahomans, you know what I know? Tell you what. Okies are some regular people. There's some regular wisdom out there. So let's talk about a government shutdown as we go and end the day.
So we go into a shutdown midnight, September 30th. What does that mean for the American people? October 1st, the military gets paid. October 2nd, federal payroll goes out. So all federal employees will get their paycheck. Social Security paychecks will continue. Medicare, Medicaid will still be honored. But what happens if it goes farther than that? Well, come the 15th and 16th of October, those checks won't go out anymore. For what? Well, we're waiting on the Democrats to, once again, shoot down a clean CR, which a clean CR means is a continuing resolution, keep funding the way that it's continued to go. Yet the Schumers of the world, which there's only one, Chucky, he's not wanting to allow the Democrats to vote on it. Why? Because he's scared. They're scared of their own base. He's truly 100% scared of his own base. He's afraid that AOC is going to run against him. So he's so worried about his seat that he is willing to shut down the federal government. Even though those Democrats that want to vote for it, he's threatening them and saying you can't vote for it. He's literally holding them hostage too. This is the exact same CR that they voted for 6 months ago, and the same type of CR they voted for 13 times underneath Joe Biden.
Yeah. Actually, that shows you the real problem, that we keep ruling by CR. They got one job to do. They literally have one thing to do. Let's make the entire calendar in Congress for every single congressional officer. Let's make it all say September. all year long. You only have one thing to do. Apparently, that's what you need to do. God, I really hate that stuff. I really don't like our government. I really don't mind that it's going to be defunded. And even seeing Republicans that are generally saying things that are true and honest, and he is, like, there's no fear in that. Let it shut down. Let it shut down for a month and a half. Take it till Christmas. Let's see what happens next. You want to see people leave the Democrat plantation? If Republicans were smart, they would go ahead and not fund the government and then let people who work and that vote for the government, the 3+ million people that are tied into direct federal employment, they'd be like, hey, this is not a really good way to make a living. Maybe I should go be productive. I always thought that working for the government was a temporary gig. I always did. For anyone who thinks otherwise, like, I didn't think I was going to get a career out of it. When they said 20 years, I said, oh boy, we'll see. I've never worked 20 years at anything. And I joined with almost, 15, 18 years of work experience when I got there. Maybe almost 20. It never seemed like it was a real job that was going to last forever. And the fact that people get locked in and they just get to feed at the trough. And as they say in the business, the golden eagle takes a crap in your bank account every 2 weeks, one way or another. Sometimes just reminding them that the American people are paying for that golden eagle is a good thing. All right. Thanks for listening for today's show. Share it on Spotify if you have want to share it with someone else. Just send KyleSerafinshow.com in a link in a text message to a buddy. I would very much appreciate that. If you want to see any of the articles that were quoted today, you can go to KyleSerafin.com. If you want to see that Chuck Schumer clip, you don't have to be a paid member. You can be a free member over on Locals, but we would love it if you got into the community. And lastly, if you're watching over on one of the video platforms like YouTube, or if you're watching on Rumble, like the video. We'd appreciate it. Subscribe to the channels over there. Super easy to do. Share it there if you like, but send the link. That'd be the preferred way to go. Let's do something to cleanse the palate. How about a lib? This guy's clearly a lib. He even sounds kind of effeminate. Saying maybe your version of welcome isn't really that welcome. When you have to label all the people that you're going to include, maybe you're not being that inclusive. I think this is quite funny. This is actually what happens, the difference between sort of like hard leftists and people that are thinking people that end up on the liberal side.
I saw a welcome mat in front of somebody's door, and it was one of those welcome mats that's like, in this house, we welcome all genders, all religions, all colors, and there's like 10 things on it, which is very inclusive, and I like that. But I think it could be more inclusive if it just said, welcome. Because that includes everybody. Already, it includes people that can't see very good, Don't make me read the whole thing to find out if I'm allowed into your... Don't make me be like, wait, honey, I got to see if Jews are on here. Okay, we're good, let's go, Just put welcome. It's also nicer to the kid in the sweatshop that has to sew it together, Now, there's like a 9-year-old in Pakistan that's like, and pansexuals. Can I have a break? No! Don't forget about demisexuals.
He's not wrong, is he? That kind of takes us to the old ways were best. Kind of like what we were talking about with that Joy Reid lady. Wouldn't it be nice if we could just roll it back like 120 years, no income tax, none of that stuff, none of this government garbage? It wouldn't matter if you funded it or didn't fund it. Why? Because nobody relied on it. Nobody expected the government was going to keep you alive. Like maybe just a simple sign on your doorstep that said, welcome. That'd be good. I'm for it. God bless all of you. Thanks so much for listening. Like I said, share the show, and thanks for being part of the program here. You guys allow me to do this job so that I can wake up at 5:25 in the morning when my little baby is talking, and I can immediately start working. Even in my pajamas, I can do it. And that's really special. It may be a second gig for these guys that were on the mainstream news got canceled. It's a primary gig here, and I actually really like it. I wouldn't want to go back to work for the government for anything. I wouldn't want to give this up. This is way better. So anyway, a big thank you to you who listen. Have a fantastic day. We'll see you again on Wednesday morning at 0930. Rumble, YouTube, X, etc.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.